Hey, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. I am going to review a holy grail of home video, 1983's The Keep. I was in high school when the movie came out, and I read the book, and I was very excited to see the movie. A little disappointed in the movie because they cut out a lot of the stuff in it. The movie has a lengthy history, and this special edition from Vinegar Syndrome really gets into it. They interview the producer, the writer of the novel, the special effects guy, the makeup effects guy, the guy who played the bad guy, and one of the members of Tangerine Dream. I mean, they really get into the making of this film. It's why this Vinegar Syndrome release is going to be one of my top for 2024. So Michael Mann, this was his follow-up to Thief. If you know Michael Mann, who directed Heat and many other things, Miami Vice and such, when he was a fledgling movie director and he knocked it out of the park with Thief, Paramount Pictures greenlighted this film adaptation of F. Paul Wilson's popular horror novel, The Keep. He wanted to do it. Michael Mann wanted to do his own thing. They filmed it. They turned in an over 3-hour cut. Paramount wanted it to be 2 hours, so they cut some out of it. The 2-hour cut didn't do so well with test audiences, and then Paramount cut it down another 26 minutes or so, down to about 96 minutes, 94 minutes, something like that total. The last bit of edits were awful. You can tell watching the film that there's some things cut out, that there's some jump cuts that really don't make any sense. These people are here doing this, and all of a sudden they're over here doing something else kind of thing. The middle of the movie, according to the historian that does the commentary on this release, said that the middle part of the movie was the worst part of it. They got hacked. They had to shorten the movie down to get it to a runtime. Some of these deleted scenes have been shown in TV versions. There's a different ending that's been shown in TV versions, but none of that was licensed for this release on Vinegar Syndrome. You get the theatrical version and all the extras on a newly remastered Blu-ray and a new 4K. So that's why this is a home video holy grail. The last release was a 1993 Laserdisc. Before that, it was on VHS. It's never been out on a real DVD or Blu-ray. And Vinegar Syndrome announced on Black Friday a special announcement. We've got this surprise movie. Here it is, The Keep in 4K. Jaws hit the floor. You could literally hear it across the country, around the world. Jaws hit the floor. You've got a 4K version of this movie that's been out of print for decades. They had two versions of it, a limited edition and the regular edition. Both sold out within 2 days. There is a regular version still up for pre-order on Amazon. I think you can still get that. They're producing like 4,000 more copies for that. But I think there was a grand total of 12,000 copies or so, and they're completely sold out. I got the limited edition, and I got to say it's wonderful. For an extra $10, you get a hard box and a 60-page book. The book has 3 essays in it, and the third one was the most important one. It's an interview with Michael Mann in 1983. So that was worth the price. I'm glad I paid the extra money to get the book. Plus, I like the box, and this is one of my favorite movies. Is it a great movie? No. It's probably a 3 out of 5 for most people. If you've never read the book, you're going to be confused about what's going on. He was crafting a more visual fairy tale than a fable kind of thing, because he always said fables kind of had dark endings where fairy tales had happy endings, and he wanted to have a happy ending with this film. That's arguably, whether that happened or not depends on which version you see. In the theatrical version, it's not exactly a happy ending. But in a version that was shown on TV, there is an additional scene at the end that shows the happy couple surviving what happens. Again, if you've read the books, I've seen a few reviews already of this 4K, and obviously the people have never read the book, so they don't know what to make of the movie. For someone who has read the book, the movie is the Cliff Notes version. Some of the major parts of the story are there. Some other major parts are missing. My biggest problem with the movie is that Michael Mann took out a subplot that is the first half of the book. Just kind of tossed that away, which was one of the biggest plot twists in the book. It made it far more interesting. There's a scene... I don't want to give anything away if you haven't read the book. We'll just talk about the movie. Again, as someone who's read the book, the movie plays out. It makes sense to me because I know the parts that were cut out and how it all works together. I think Michael Mann was really crafting an epic, a visually stunning epic that the movie studio took out of his hands and chopped up. And that's why he's almost taken his name off of it. He doesn't like talking about it, but it still says directed by Michael Mann. So he didn't take his name off the film. Watching it last night was a revelation because, first of all, I remember it on VHS. There are close-ups of like Scott Glenn's character, and I haven't even talked about the cast yet, but there are close-ups, and when you watch pan and scan on VHS or TV, all you saw was like part of his eye. You didn't even know what the scene was because it was so cut off. anyway, long story short, Scott Glenn, Ian McKellen, Jürgen Prochnov, Gabriel Byrne. I mean, it's a strong cast for 1983. It would turn into a grueling shoot. They were supposed to film for like 13 weeks. It went on for like 22 weeks. Their special effects guy died and didn't get to finish the special effects. To all the interviews that are on this Vinegar Syndrome release really say great things about Michael Mann. They say that he did a lot of scenes over and over and over and over and over, and some of the people, like especially the guy who played the bad guy, wasn't a professional actor. He wasn't really a fan of doing things over and over and over, but everybody says that he was very professional in the makeup chair and all the stuff. The bad guy goes through 3 different incarnations in the movie. There were 3 different special effects challenges. You're going to want to watch the extras for all of that. The film looks amazing. It is the best it's ever looked. I don't even think in the theater it looked this great. There is a scene where Scott Glenn's character is leaving what's supposed to be Greece and taking a boat over to Europe, and it goes from darkness into a sunrise, and it's just the most beautiful shot, and it's a long track. And it really didn't need to be that long, but I know he was trying to get the whole sunset in there, and it's now it looks amazing. There's a few scenes in the movie that are grainy, and there's obviously some optical effects that didn't age very well, but for most of it, like close-ups, the details and hairs and fibers and colors and eyes and things like that, it's fantastic. This movie looks better than it deserves to look. They have upgraded the stereo sound. It was quite a soundstage, actually, for a stereo mix. On my receiver, I had a 2-channel plus the subwoofer was activated. It gave some depth to the sound, actually. I was kind of shocked that some of my side speakers weren't working because it sounded like they were. Now, there are some dropouts and some things where like maybe one channel gets a little lower than the other. These were a problem in the original mix, and there's only so much they can do. So this is pretty much the quintessential version of the theatrical version. There's a little blurb at the beginning that says there are other film elements out there, but they couldn't license them for this home video release. So maybe there's enough people talking about this movie during the extras, and there's almost 3 hours worth of extras. They talk so much about this and how much they loved working on it and how much fans have started, really loving this movie, even though it's a flawed thing, that maybe one day we will get the director's cut. I would at least like to see the 2-hour version if we can't see the whole 3-hour version. Like there's a massive scene where a lot of soldiers get killed at the end of the movie, and you basically see the aftermath. Turns out they filmed a lot of that battle, but they just didn't have the money or the special effects guy to finish it. I can't say enough good things about Vinegar Syndrome. There are some boutique labels out there now. When I started getting into movies back in DVD days, Criterion Collection was the one. They were the boutique label that found original film elements and gave you the best possible version, audio and video, of a film. And I've got a lot of Criterion Collection. Matter of fact, a podcast I did just a couple weeks ago of The Fiend Without a Face. It's a DVD with a super high bit rate. They mastered that thing so it would look as good as it could on DVD, and up converted to 4K, it looks great. So I have quite a few Criterion Collection, but now here in 2025, we have a lot more boutique labels. Arrow Video in the UK, which has started to release US versions. Indicator, 88 Films. There are several out there, and Vinegar Syndrome is one of them. These are small boutique labels with a small number of people who really care about restoring films, protecting films, and saving films. And when I do my end of the year, which is coming in the next couple of days, my top video releases of the year, 2 of them are Vinegar Syndrome. Phase 4, which is a science fiction movie from the 70s, and The Keep, which is a science fiction horror movie from the 80s. Most of the Vinegar Syndrome stuff, like they're doing a thing right now where you can subscribe to them for over $1,000, but you will get all the releases for the year. Unfortunately, they are the kings of like B-movie cinema. So a lot of the releases just really aren't my cup of tea. Now, I'm glad that some of these movies are getting released for the fans of these movies. I think that's what's great about these boutique labels. And they're making very small amounts of these movies. So like I tried to get the Conan special edition. The 2 Conan movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger got released by Arrow last year. And if you didn't pre-order the special editions, you were basically left with the standard editions. They sold out that quick. The films were fully remastered in HDR and Dolby Vision and HDR10, Dolby Atmos soundtracks and the whole 9 yards. People jumped on that, but it was a boutique label, and they're not making millions of them like Disney or Fox or whoever. So Vinegar Syndrome with these 2 I wish I had bought the limited edition of Phase 4, which is one of my favorite movies of the year, because I hadn't seen that since I was a kid. That movie holds up, and what a great version. What I loved about the Vinegar Syndrome more than the great picture and the great sound was all of the extras. It's all new stuff, and they've talked to people that actually worked on the film. The same with The Keep. Everybody they interview, these are new interviews, and they're all people that literally worked on the film, that were there in 1982 and 83 when they were filming the film. The major releases from big film studios don't go to this level. They have an hour-long, highly produced, great thing which shows you a lot of behind the scenes and funny stuff and whatever. But Vinegar Syndrome sits down with these people who worked on this. They talked to one of the three guys in Tangerine Dream and about how they adapted the music and why there's no soundtrack. And it's just fascinating stuff. And for somebody who's always liked this movie, liked that it's the Cliff Notes version of a book that I really loved as a kid or as a younger person, this is a holy grail of releases. To most people, this would be like, oh, that's that weird movie I used to see on cable, and it's okay. But I have so much more history with it. This is one of my favorite things in my collection now. It's like a holy grail. I want to put it on a shelf at the top of my my massive movie cabinet. Anyway, if you haven't picked it up yet, like I said, you can still get the standard version. Amazon, I think Vinegar Syndrome is now completely sold out. And Amazon had a small amount that they are pre-ordering, but that is the standard edition. You don't get the box, and you don't get the book, but you'll get the movie in the best, and you'll get all the extras, which come on the Blu-ray. The movie the 4K just has the movie on it. And with the commentary, there's a commentary from a movie historian. I spot checked that because I don't watch a lot of those, but I'm going to watch the whole movie with that commentary on. The guy knew what he was talking about, knew some of the behind-the-scenes stories of what Michael Mann did, what Paramount Pictures did, how this movie turned out the way it turned out. It's fascinating, some of the stories he had. And like I said, the interviews on the Blu-ray, priceless. This is, for a fan of the film or a fan of hard-to-get films, this is a 5 out of 5 release. Vinegar Syndrome knocked it out of the park. If you're just a fan of movies, this is probably a 3 out of 5 because it's not going to be one of your favorite movies, but it is a fantastic release. And what a historical thing to save. It's one of Michael Mann's early movies, a lot of studio tampering. There's a lot of stories involved, and the final product is flawed, but you get everything in this little box. It was totally worth the money. So highest marks and one of my favorite releases of the year. Keep Vinegar Syndrome and those boutique labels, Arrow and the others, keep them in business so we get little movies like this that really, they don't deserve the light of day. They were lost to time just about. A Laserdisc in 1993 was the last release for this movie. And now we have a brilliant 4K. It's amazing. So The Keep, your mileage may vary, but it's one of my favorite releases of the year. I'm Scott. I'm ROCKFILE. Thanks for listening to a long podcast. Have a spectacular day.